The Second World War was not just a clash of nations. It was a collision of ideas, of fanatical visions, of entire peoples caught in a storm of annihilation. In that storm, one organization rose like a blade drawn from darkness, the Waffen-SS. Created as the militarized arm of Heinrich Himmler's SS empire, they were no ordinary soldiers. They were sworn to Adolf Hitler personally. Bound not by country, not by constitution, but by oath to one man, the Führer. Their creed was not honor in battle, but absolute obedience, racial fanaticism, and merciless violence. At first they were few. Black uniformed guards parading in Berlin. Bodyguards at rallies. A shadow force at the edges of Hitler's power. But as war consumed Europe, the Waffen-SS grew, from a handful of men into a multinational army of nearly 1 million. Germans, yes, but also Dutch, French, Norwegians, Croats, Hungarians, even volunteers from as far as India and the Middle East. This was not just a military unit. It was a crusade. Their reputation became legend. In the East, Soviet soldiers feared them as demons. In the West, Allied commanders grudgingly acknowledged their skill. At Normandy, Arnhem, the Ardennes, the Waffen-SS fought with savage ferocity. They carved their name into battlefields with blood and iron. But legends deceive. For every tale of battlefield prowess, there are whispers, villages torched, innocents executed, prisoners massacred. Ordre-sur-Glane in France. Malmedy in Belgium. Countless nameless hamlets in Poland and Ukraine, erased in fire. The Waffen-SS were not simply fighters. They were executioners. This duality, warriors and war criminals, knights and butchers, is the enigma of the Waffen-SS. They saw themselves as an elite brotherhood destined to shape a new Europe. Yet history remembers them as architects of terror, guardians of genocide, the dark heart of Hitler's war machine. And so the question remains, who were they really? Were they the ultimate soldiers of the Third Reich, or the willing instruments of its crimes? Were they drawn by ideology, or by the intoxication of belonging to something greater, darker, deadlier? To answer this, we must journey through their origins, their rise, their battlefield glories, and their atrocities. We must walk into the training camps where men were stripped of humanity and forged into zealots. We must step onto the killing fields where their black insignia became a death sentence for millions. And we must confront the chilling aftermath, when the world finally judged them not as soldiers, but as criminals. This is not a story for the faint of heart. It is a story of loyalty twisted into fanaticism, of courage poisoned by ideology, of men who sought glory, and instead became shadows in history's darkest chapter. The Waffen-SS myth. Monster. Machine. The truth begins here. Berlin, 1925. The city trembles with chaos. Broken streets, broken men, broken dreams. The First World War has left Germany bleeding. The Weimar Republic staggers like a boxer on the ropes, debts, inflation, humiliation. And in the beer halls, in the smoke and fury of resentment, a new voice rises. Adolf Hitler. But where Hitler goes, violence follows. Communists clash with nationalists. Knives flash in back alleys. Beer hall rallies erupt in riots. Hitler is not safe. His movement is not secure. And so he creates a shield, his own bodyguards. They are small at first. Just a handful of loyal men, dressed in black uniforms, boots polished to a mirror sheen. They call themselves the Schutzstaffel, the protection squadron. At the start, they are nobodies. A few dozen thugs, standing rigid behind their leader at rallies, glaring at the crowds, fists clenched, ready to strike. But the black uniform is not an accident. It is a statement. Unlike the brown shirt d'essai, the SS is sharp, menacing, disciplined. The skull insignia gleams on their caps, the Totenkopf, a death's head, whispering of loyalty beyond death. This is not just a guard detail. This is theater. A dark performance to project power, fear, inevitability. In Berlin streets, people notice. The SS is small, but their aura grows. When they march like machines. When they stare like predators. They are shadows in daylight, the silent guardians of Hitler's ambition. By 1929, Heinrich Himmler steps in. A man with glasses, quiet voice, and terrifying vision. He sees the SS not as a handful of guards, but as the seed of something much larger. An elite order, a racial army, a cult of loyalty. Under his command, the SS expands. Recruitment is strict. Standards are severe. Height, health, Aryan ancestry, every detail measured. These are not street thugs anymore. They are carefully chosen instruments. Still, in the late 1920s, the SS remains small compared to the stormtrooper SA, who number in the hundreds of thousands. The SA are rowdy, chaotic, uncontrollable. The SS, in contrast, are few but disciplined, silent, obedient. Hitler begins to see the difference. In a movement built on rage, the SS offers something colder, precision. And so, the black shirts become more than guards. They become symbols. At rallies, they stand like statues, rifles slung, faces blank. They embody the message: Hitler is untouchable. Hitler is eternal. And if you defy him, you face the skull and the black uniform. But this shadow army is still waiting. Waiting for the moment when Germany will fall into Hitler's hands. Waiting for their chance to step from the background into history's spotlight. The black uniforms gleam. The skulls grin. The oath awaits. And soon, the SS will no longer just protect Hitler. They will become his weapon. Germany changes overnight. The Reichstag burns. The Republic collapses. And Adolf Hitler seizes power. The world watches in shock as a failed revolutionary becomes Chancellor of Germany. But behind the podium, behind the roaring speeches, a black uniformed presence lurks. The SS. Once a handful of guards, now an expanding force. Silent. Loyal. Waiting. The SA, Hitler's original stormtroopers, number in the millions. They have fists, clubs, raw muscle. But they are undisciplined. They drink. They brawl. They embarrass the Führer with chaos. And their leader, Ernst Röhm, dreams of taking over the German army itself. Röhm wants power. Too much power. Hitler hesitates. He cannot alienate the army, the Reichswehr. He needs their support. So he turns to the SS. The black shirts are small but efficient. Fanatical. Controlled. Perfect for a deadly task. June 1934. The night of the long knives. A storm breaks across Germany. Röhm and the SA leadership are hunted down, arrested, executed. And who carries out the killings? Who enforces Hitler's purge? The SS. They are no longer guards. They are assassins. Blood cements their place. The army watches in approval as Röhm's challenge is destroyed. Hitler's grip tightens. And the SS steps into the void. The stormtroopers are broken. The black uniformed elite remain, their loyalty proven in blood. Now Heinrich Himmler moves fast. He reshapes the SS into a state within a state. Police, intelligence, camps, all fall under his control. The SS grows tentacles, reaching into every corner of the Reich. Gestapo officers knock on doors at midnight. SS guards oversee the first concentration camps at Dachau. And a new branch takes shape. The Waffen-SS, soldiers trained not just to guard but to fight. The transformation is staggering. What began as bodyguards at beer halls has become an empire of terror. The SS are no longer shadows. They are the black steel spine of Hitler's Reich. Their oath is chilling. Not to Germany, not to the Constitution, but to Adolf Hitler personally. Loyalty is my honor. And with that oath, a dark brotherhood is sealed. By 1939, as tanks roll into Poland, the Waffen-SS marches beside the Wehrmacht. No longer hidden behind podiums, no longer standing still at rallies, they storm battlefields. Their skull insignia flashes in firelight. Their reputation begins to spread. Elite, ruthless, unstoppable. But something else spreads with them. Fear. In villages, in camps, in occupied streets. Wherever the black uniforms go, death follows. The SS has completed its metamorphosis. No longer just protectors. No longer just executioners. Now they are a private army. Hitler's army. And soon, they will unleash a war unlike any the world has ever seen. The oath. It is the beating heart of the SS. While the Wehrmacht swears loyalty to Germany, the SS swears something darker, something personal. They do not serve a flag. They do not serve a constitution. They serve one man, Adolf Hitler. Picture it. A ceremony lit by torches. Black uniforms gleaming under the night sky. The air heavy with silence, broken only by the voice of Heinrich Himmler. Each recruit steps forward, hand raised, voice trembling with fanatic devotion. I swear to you, Adolf Hitler, loyalty and bravery. I vow to you and to you alone, obedience unto death. The words are chilling. An oath not to a nation, not to an ideal, but to a man. The Führer becomes more than a leader. He becomes a living symbol, almost divine. A figure whom the SS must obey without question, without hesitation, without mercy. This oath transforms the SS from soldiers into disciples. Their black uniforms are robes of a cult. Their skull insignia is not merely decoration, it is prophecy. Death before disobedience. Death before dishonor. And Himmler nurtures this cult with precision. He speaks of racial purity, of Aryan blood, of a 1,000-year Reich forged by the chosen few. The SS are to be the knights of this new order, not just warriors, but guardians of Hitler's vision. In Himmler's mind, the SS is not a military unit. It is a religion. Every ritual feeds the illusion. Midnight initiations. Ceremonies at Wilsberg Castle, where Himmler dreams of an SS Camelot, a holy fortress of the new order. Recruits study not only tactics, but ideology, race science, Nordic myths, the poison of anti-Semitism. Indoctrination drills deeper than bullets ever could. To the outside world, the SS looks like an army. To those inside, it feels like destiny. They are told they are chosen. They are told they are superior. They are told they are the vanguard of a new humanity. And they believe it. Even Hitler himself sees their devotion as priceless. Where others may question, the SS obey. Where others hesitate, the SS strike. They are not bound by law, by morality, by conscience. They are bound only by the Führer's will. And so, the SS begins to function as a cult wrapped in military armor. Each man not just a soldier, but a believer. Each unit not just a division, but a congregation. Each battle not just a fight, but a ritual of faith. But faith cuts both ways. Fanatic loyalty breeds fanatic cruelty. If Hitler orders destruction, they will destroy. If Hitler demands blood, they will spill it. If Hitler commands death, they will kill, without hesitation, without mercy, without regret. The cult of the Führer is complete, and it will soon drive Europe into a nightmare. Because when men believe they are chosen, when they believe their leader is infallible, when they believe their cause is holy, there is no limit to the horrors they will commit. The SS have given their souls to Hitler. Now they are ready to give him the world. The SS was not only built on loyalty, it was built on belief. From the very beginning, Heinrich Himmler understood something chilling. Soldiers with rifles could win battles, but soldiers with ideology could win wars of extermination. He did not want mere fighters. He wanted zealots. Warriors who killed not only because they were ordered, but because they believed. And so, ideology became the marrow of the SS. Every recruit was trained not just with bullets and bayonets, but with lectures and propaganda. In SS schools, men sat through endless hours of race theory, lectures about Nordic superiority, the poison of so-called Jewish Bolshevism, and the dream of a new Europe ruled by Aryan blood. It was not education. It was indoctrination. Himmler demanded racial purity. Pedigrees were examined like horses. Family trees traced back generations. Bloodlines checked for even the smallest imperfection. To wear the black uniform was not just an honor. It was proof that you were chosen, that your very blood gave you the right to dominate. But this obsession with race went beyond science. It became myth. Himmler filled the SS with symbolism, rituals, and pseudo-religion. He compared them to medieval knights. He saw them as the heirs of Teutonic warriors. He envisioned them as a new priesthood of Hitler's empire, guardians not only of the state, but of a racial destiny. Wilsberg Castle became his temple. A fortress in Westphalia, it was redesigned as the spiritual home of the SS. There, Himmler planned ceremonies steeped in medieval imagery, round tables, mystical symbols, even chambers that resembled crypts. He wanted the SS to see themselves not as men of the 20th century, but as timeless warriors in an eternal crusade. The ideology was intoxicating. Recruits were told they were better than ordinary Germans, that they were the spearhead of history, that they carried the burden of reshaping the world. This belief gave them arrogance. It gave them pride. It gave them permission to kill without remorse. And at the core of this belief was hatred. Hatred of Jews. Hatred of communists. Hatred of anyone labeled unworthy of life. The SS saw themselves as surgeons cutting a diseased world. Every bullet, every execution, every burning village was justified as cleansing. This was not war as nations had known it. This was war as ideology, a holy war. And it worked. By the time the Second World War exploded across Europe, the SS was no longer just a guard force or private army. It was an engine of belief. Its men marched with the confidence of destiny, convinced that the Reich would last 1,000 years. But belief is dangerous. When men are convinced they are chosen, when they see their victims not as human beings but as parasites, when they believe murder is duty, there are no limits to the atrocities they will commit. The SS had been forged into something terrifying. Not just soldiers, not just killers, but fanatics. And soon, the world would discover what happens when ideology and violence march together under a black flag. The journey into the Waffen-SS did not begin on the battlefield. It began in the camps. Behind barbed wire and iron gates, far from the eyes of ordinary Germans, young recruits were stripped of everything that made them human. The SS training grounds were not schools of war. They were factories of fanaticism. From the first day, the recruit was broken down. His individuality crushed. His past erased. Instructors barked, shouted, humiliated. If he faltered, he was beaten. If he questioned, he was punished. The message was clear: you are nothing. Only the SS matters. Only the Führer matters. Physical training was brutal. Recruits marched for miles with packs that broke their backs. They crawled through mud until their uniforms were soaked with blood from barbed wire cuts. They learned to shoot, to throw grenades, to attack with bayonets. But this was not just to make them soldiers. It was to make them endure pain, to embrace it, even to worship it. Because pain in the SS was not punishment. It was transformation. The mind was targeted just as savagely. Hours of ideological instruction followed the drills. Lectures on racial superiority, Jewish conspiracies, and the glory of the Aryan race. Maps of a future Europe cleansed of inferiors. Charts that measured skulls and bloodlines. The recruits sat in silence, absorbing poison disguised as destiny. The SS instructors understood. To kill without hesitation, men had to unlearn compassion. And so cruelty was rehearsed like a skill. Recruits were forced to beat each other, to carry out mock executions, to practice ruthless obedience. One day they might be ordered to shoot a comrade's dog, not because it was necessary, but because it proved loyalty mattered more than mercy. Those who hesitated were discarded. Only the hardest remained. Himmler wanted them to be iron men. Soldiers who did not think, did not feel, did not doubt. Soldiers who would obey even the most monstrous command with the same calm as obeying an order to march. It worked. Out of these camps came a new kind of fighter. Young, fanatical, and unshakable. Their discipline impressed. Their ruthlessness terrified. They were not the rowdy stormtroopers of the SA. They were sharper, deadlier. A black uniformed breed of soldier whose very presence carried menace. But what the world would soon learn was this. The SS training camps did not just forge soldiers. They forged executioners. Men who no longer saw civilians, prisoners, or children as people, but as obstacles, targets, enemies to be erased. This was not military education. This was indoctrination into inhumanity. And when these men left the camps, they carried with them not just weapons and drills, but an oath, a faith, and a readiness to unleash terror without limit. The black steel of the SS had been forged, and soon it would be tested in fire. Discipline in the Waffen-SS was not ordinary discipline. It was not about marching straight or keeping boots polished. It was about control, total, merciless control. Every recruit was taught that hesitation was weakness. Compassion was betrayal. Independent thought was rebellion. The SS wanted obedience so absolute that even conscience itself could be silenced. Punishments were savage. A man caught disobeying orders might be beaten until unconscious. Others were forced to stand outside in freezing snow without coats, hours on end, until their bodies shook and collapsed. For cowardice, there was no mercy. Some were executed by their own comrades. The message was burned into every recruit. Survival depended on loyalty, and loyalty meant cruelty. But brutality was not just punishment. It was ritual. Recruits were forced to demonstrate violence as proof of devotion. Bayonet drills demanded stabbing straw dummies painted with stars of David. Live animals were sometimes slaughtered in exercises to strip away pity. Instructors sneered at weakness. To be SS meant to be merciless. The indoctrination ran deeper than fear. Himmler's system combined terror with seduction. Recruits were told they were chosen, that they belonged to an elite brotherhood, that ordinary Germans were weak, but they, the SS, were strong, superior, destined to rule a new world. The message was intoxicating. Uniforms reinforced the illusion. Black cloth tailored sharp, silver runes gleaming on collars, skull insignia glaring from caps. Every stitch whispered power. When recruits wore them, they felt invincible. They were no longer farm boys, factory workers, or clerks. They were knights of the Reich. And so discipline became identity. Brutality became pride. A man who flinched at cruelty was shamed. A man who carried it out without hesitation was praised. Over time, hesitation died. Mercy vanished. What remained was a soldier who could execute without blinking, who could burn villages without regret, who could kill not out of anger but out of duty. That was the final goal of the SS. Not berserkers, not wild killers, but cold professionals. Machines of ideology. Men who obeyed as naturally as breathing. The effect was terrifying. By the eve of war, the Waffen-SS had transformed into a brotherhood of indoctrinated zealots. They believed in their superiority. They gloried in their discipline. They carried themselves with arrogance and fought with fanaticism. But beneath the steel exterior lay a dark truth. They were men whose humanity had been dismantled piece by piece. And when war came, they would prove it. In Poland, in France, across the blood-soaked fields of Europe. The world would soon discover what happens when an army is built not only on weapons, but on brutality disguised as honor and obedience twisted into faith. The SS was ready, and the nightmare was about to begin. September 1st, 1939. The sky over Poland roars with engines. Tanks grind across the frontier. Soldiers surge forward in gray waves. The Second World War has begun, and among the Wehrmacht storming eastward, a new force marches in black and field gray, the Waffen-SS. Their first true test, their baptism of blood. In Poland, they fight with a fanatic edge. Small in number compared to the army, but relentless. Villages crumble under artillery. Civilians scatter in terror. The SS strikes not only at soldiers, but at the very heart of Polish life. Executions follow in their wake. Teachers, priests, intellectuals, gunned down to break the spirit of a nation. Already, the mask begins to slip. These are not merely troops. These are executioners cloaked in the uniform of warriors. But on the battlefield, their reputation grows quickly. They fight with aggression, often reckless. SS officers push men forward in suicidal charges to prove their loyalty. Casualties are high, but bravery is undeniable. In the Wehrmacht, generals whisper, "These men are fanatics, but they do not retreat." Spring 1940. France. Blitzkrieg explodes across Western Europe. In 6 weeks, a mighty republic collapses. And again, the Waffen-SS charge at the front. At Dunkirk, they clash with desperate British forces. In villages across northern France, their brutality leaves a trail of fear. Civilians are shot as spies. Prisoners are massacred when slowing down the advance. Yet their myth grows. Propaganda hails them as Germany's elite. Posters and films show tall, iron-faced men in immaculate uniforms, unstoppable, disciplined, loyal unto death. The Waffen-SS is presented as the future of warfare, the perfect soldier. But behind the propaganda lies carnage. At Leibstandarte, in northern France, British soldiers surrender after a desperate fight. 99 men, unarmed, are lined up against a wall. Machine guns chatter. Bodies collapse in heaps. The survivors are finished off with bayonets. The perpetrators? The Waffen-SS Totenkopf division, veterans not of battlefields but of concentration camps. The world begins to see the truth. The Waffen-SS are not bound by laws of war. For them, surrender is weakness. Mercy is treason. Their indoctrination, their oath, their ideology, all fuse into ruthless violence. By the fall of France, their name is etched into both fear and legend. To their own people, they are the knightly order of the Reich. To their enemies, they are black-clad demons. Soldiers who do not fight like men, but like zealots possessed by an unholy cause. And this is only the beginning. For in the east, beyond the forests of Poland, a far greater campaign awaits. A war of annihilation. A war where the Waffen-SS will no longer merely fight armies, but entire peoples. France has fallen. The swastika flies over Paris. Across Europe, nations crumble like dominoes before Hitler's blitzkrieg. And at the spearhead of this destruction march the Waffen-SS. Now swollen into multiple divisions, they are no longer a shadow force. They are a standing army, fanatical, brutal, and unyielding. Their reputation spreads faster than their tanks. To Germans, they are hailed as the Reich's elite warriors. To conquered peoples, they are nightmares in black and gray. Everywhere they march, discipline is their armor. But cruelty is their calling card. In the Low Countries, their advance leaves scars on towns that dared resist. Civilians suspected of helping partisans are executed without trial. Entire families shot in retribution. The SS does not distinguish between soldier and villager, resistance fighter or innocent. To them, all are enemies of the Reich. In France, their legend grows darker. The massacre at Leibstandarte is whispered among Allied soldiers. Surrender is no guarantee of life. To fall into the hands of the Waffen-SS is to face the abyss. Yet the Wehrmacht admires their ferocity. While regular German soldiers sometimes hesitate, the SS push forward with reckless aggression. They suffer staggering losses, but their fanatic drive terrifies opponents. They do not fight like ordinary troops. They fight as if defeat itself is unthinkable. Propaganda amplifies the myth. Posters show SS men as the iron heart of the Reich. Films depict them as noble knights defending Europe against chaos. Families across Germany are told their sons serve in an elite brotherhood, chosen to secure the future of the fatherland. The truth, massacres, executions, terror, is hidden under layers of heroic imagery. By 1941, the Waffen-SS has become a symbol, not just of Hitler's personal army, but of Nazi ideology itself. They embody the creed, loyalty, obedience, ruthlessness. They are no longer bodyguards. They are no longer a private militia. They are a multinational war machine, expanding with foreign volunteers drawn by the promise of glory and belonging. But Europe trembles. In occupied cities, black uniforms patrol with cold arrogance. The knock on the door at midnight, the arrests, the executions, these become daily fears. The Waffen-SS, alongside their Gestapo brothers, enforce terror as a way of life. Still, for all their victories in the West, the true test lies ahead. Hitler turns his gaze eastward, to the vast plains of the Soviet Union, to what he calls a war of annihilation. And there, the Waffen-SS will not just fight armies. They will unleash something far worse. Because in the East, the line between soldier and executioner will vanish. Entire populations will be marked for death. And the black insignia of the SS will become synonymous with genocide. The West has seen the brutality of the Waffen-SS. The East will witness their true nature. June 22, 1941. Dawn. The eastern sky erupts in fire. 3 million German soldiers pour across the Soviet border. Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history. And among the armored columns and marching battalions, the black insignia of the Waffen-SS gleams in the morning light. This is the moment they were made for. The East. A war not just of conquest, but of annihilation. Hitler calls it a crusade against Jewish Bolshevism. To the Waffen-SS, it is destiny. They surge across the frontier with ferocious speed. Cities fall in days. Villages burn. Soviet units, unprepared, collapse before the blitzkrieg. And wherever the SS advance, they carry terror with them. In the fields of Ukraine and Belarus, they fight with relentless fury. Their training, their indoctrination, their fanatical loyalty all ignite in battle. They storm fortified positions with reckless courage. They suffer heavy losses but never retreat. Soviet soldiers begin to fear them as demons in black and gray, fanatics who fight to the last bullet. But their mission is darker than battle. Orders from the top are clear. This is no ordinary war. It is a racial war. Behind the front lines, the SS help clear entire regions of undesirables. Jews, communists, partisans, anyone marked as subhuman. The Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads made up largely of SS men, follow close behind the advancing divisions. They do not engage enemy armies. They hunt civilians. Town by town, village by village, they round up Jews, force them into fields, forests, pits. Machine guns chatter. Entire communities vanish into the soil. The Waffen-SS do not stand apart from this horror. They participate. They guard the roundups, assist the executions, and sometimes carry them out themselves. To them, it is duty. To them, it is faith. To them, it is loyalty to Hitler's vision. The brutality escalates as resistance grows. Partisans strike from forests and swamps, ambushing convoys, killing officers. The SS responds with ferocity. For every German life lost, entire villages are erased. Houses torched. Civilians hanged in town squares. The policy is ruthless, collective punishment, total terror. And yet, even as atrocities mount, the Waffen-SS continue to be hailed inside Germany as heroes. Propaganda celebrates their victories. Newspapers describe them as the shield of Europe. Families write to their sons at the front with pride, unaware that those sons may have spent the day lining up civilians at gunpoint. By the end of 1941, the Eastern Front has become a furnace. The SS divisions, though bloodied, are hardened by fire. Their myth as super soldiers grows. But so does their legacy of terror. Every step eastward leaves behind a trail of graves, ashes, silence. And the deeper they go into Soviet territory, the darker their mission becomes. Because Barbarossa is not only conquest, it is genocide in motion. And the Waffen-SS are at its core. This is no longer a shadow army. This is Hitler's blade, cutting into the heart of the East. The Eastern Front was not just battlefields. It was killing fields. Wherever the German army advanced, the SS followed, and behind them came the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads composed of SS men, police, and collaborators. Their orders were chillingly simple: destroy enemies of the Reich. Jews, communists, Roma, partisans, anyone marked as unworthy of life. Entire communities were erased in a single day. In ravines, pits, and forests, men, women, and children were forced to strip, line up, and kneel. Then came the gunfire. Mass graves swallowed whole towns. The earth itself seemed to bleed. The Waffen-SS divisions, though officially separate from the Einsatzgruppen, often worked hand in hand with them. They secured villages, rounded up prisoners, provided manpower, and sometimes joined the shootings themselves. The line between soldier and executioner vanished. For the SS, war and murder became inseparable. One name became infamous: Babi Yar. Outside Kiev, September 1941. Over 33,000 Jews massacred in 2 days. The gunfire echoed for hours, then days. The perpetrators? Einsatzgruppen, aided by Waffen-SS units. The ravine filled with corpses, layer upon layer. A city's Jewish population wiped from the map in a weekend. And Babi Yar was not unique. It was repeated across Belarus, Ukraine, the Baltics. Hundreds of thousands murdered in open-air massacres. The Waffen-SS called it cleansing. History calls it genocide. But the brutality did not end with the Jews. When partisans resisted, the SS answered with terror. Entire villages burned. Men shot in reprisal. Women and children locked in barns and set aflame. To the SS, mercy was weakness. To hesitate was betrayal. Terror was the only language they spoke. This was total war, not against armies but against peoples. The Eastern Front became a laboratory of destruction where ideology and violence fused into something monstrous. The Waffen-SS saw themselves as enforcers of Hitler's vision. A new Europe carved out by fire, its populations enslaved or erased. And yet, inside Germany, their image was entirely different. Propaganda praised their heroism. Posters showed them as noble knights battling barbarian hordes. Families sent letters of admiration. Mothers boasted of sons in the Waffen-SS, believing they fought with honor. The truth was hidden beneath a veil of lies. But the truth could not be hidden forever. Survivors whispered of massacres. Soviet reports described fields filled with bodies. Even some Wehrmacht officers recoiled at the slaughter, though few dared speak openly. The black uniforms were becoming symbols of dread, not just to enemies, but to history itself. By 1942, the Waffen-SS was no longer a small elite force. It was expanding into an army of its own, foreign volunteers, new divisions, more men drawn into the cult of brutality. Their power grew as their crimes multiplied. They had begun as bodyguards in Berlin. Now, in the fields of the East, they had become executioners of entire nations. And the war was far from over. Ahead lay Stalingrad, Kursk, and the fury of the Red Army. Ahead lay desperation, fanatic resistance, and atrocities on an even greater scale. The world had seen the rise of the Waffen-SS. Now it would see their descent into madness. By 1943, the Waffen-SS had earned a reputation both feared and admired. To the Allies, they were demons in black. To the Germans, they were heroes. To themselves, they were gods of war. The myth of the Waffen-SS as super soldiers spread quickly. On every front, their divisions seemed to fight with inhuman ferocity. At Kharkov, SS panzer troops counterattacked against overwhelming Soviet forces, halting the Red Army's advance. At Kursk, they hurled themselves into the largest tank battle in history, their armored divisions pushing deeper than any other German unit. In Italy, in the Balkans, in France, their reputation followed like a shadow. They were praised as elite shock troops, always placed at the most dangerous points of battle. Their commanders, men like Paul Hauser, Sepp Dietrich, Michael Wittmann, became legends. Propaganda celebrated them as Aryan warriors, the iron fist of the Reich. And indeed, their training, their discipline, their fanaticism made them formidable. Unlike ordinary Wehrmacht conscripts, many SS soldiers had been hardened through years of brutal preparation. They did not simply follow orders. They embraced them with zeal. To retreat was unthinkable. To surrender was dishonor. Their oath bound them to fight to the last breath. Even the Allies grudgingly acknowledged their skill. British and American officers reported that Waffen-SS divisions fought with fanatical determination. Soviet commanders cursed them as the toughest units they faced. The myth of invincibility grew. But myths are never the whole story. The Waffen-SS fought savagely, yes, but often recklessly. Their fanatic aggression led to high casualties. At Kursk, their armored spearheads bled themselves white against Soviet defenses. At Kharkov, their victories came at enormous cost. For every success, hundreds of lives were thrown away in suicidal charges meant to prove loyalty. Still, the myth persisted. Inside Germany, posters showed them as tall, blonde, flawless warriors. Films depicted them as noble knights, protecting civilization against the Asiatic hordes. Families sent sons to join with pride, believing they were enlisting in an elite brotherhood destined for glory. And the SS themselves embraced this image. Their uniforms were sharp, their insignia intimidating, their rituals grand. They carried themselves not just as soldiers, but as chosen men, superior to all others. Their arrogance was as great as their ferocity. Yet behind the myth lurked a grim reality. Their elite status was built not only on skill, but on ideology. Their fanatical devotion made them fearless, but it also made them merciless. Their reputation on the battlefield could not be separated from their reputation off it. The massacres, the executions, the cruelty. Still, in 1943, the world saw only the mask. The Waffen-SS appeared unstoppable, the iron elite of the Reich. A myth polished by propaganda, hardened in blood, and feared by enemies across continents. But every myth carries a shadow. And the deeper the Waffen-SS pursued their legend of glory, the more they revealed their truth. Not super soldiers, but super executioners. And soon, in villages across Europe, that truth would burn itself into history. Every legend has a shadow. And for the Waffen-SS, the shadow was drenched in blood. Behind the propaganda posters and heroic newsreels, the Waffen-SS left a trail of atrocities that shattered their myth of honor. They called themselves warriors, but history remembers them as butchers. France, 1944. In the quiet village of Oradour-sur-Glane, Waffen-SS troops of the Das Reich Division roll in. They claim the villagers are helping partisans. The punishment is swift and merciless. Men are marched to barns and machine-gunned. Women and children are herded into the church, locked inside. Then flames. Grenades and fire consume the building as screams echo against stone walls. When the smoke clears, 642 civilians are dead. The village becomes a ghost. Belgium, the same year. During the Battle of the Bulge, American prisoners are captured at Malmedy. Unarmed, they stand in a snow-covered field, hands raised. SS troops open fire. Dozens are mowed down in minutes. Survivors are hunted through the drifts, shot where they hide. Word spreads quickly. To fall into SS hands is to sign your own death warrant. And these were only the infamous massacres, the ones burned into memory. Countless others unfolded in silence, in small villages across the east. Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, entire communities vanished overnight. Partisans meant punishment. Punishment meant annihilation. Civilians hanged from trees. Children shot in their mothers' arms. Whole towns burned to ash. The Waffen-SS justified it all. Resistance had to be crushed. Enemies had to be exterminated. Mercy was weakness. They wrapped murder in the language of duty, of loyalty, of destiny. And they carried out orders with chilling precision. Even within Germany, their brutality was felt. As the Reich turned on its own people, the SS executed deserters, dissidents, anyone deemed a threat. They became not only soldiers at the front, but executioners at home. A nation lived under their shadow. The contrast was staggering. On the front lines, propaganda celebrated them as knights. In reality, their honor was written in mass graves. And yet, here lies the darkest truth. Many of them believed the myth. Recruits told themselves they fought for Europe, for civilization, for a new order. They convinced themselves they were warriors, not murderers. The uniform blinded them. The oath enslaved them. Ideology gave them permission to kill without conscience. By 1944, the Waffen-SS stood at the peak of their power, feared, admired, and hated. Their legend as super soldiers was alive. But so was their legacy of atrocity. The two were inseparable. Every battlefield victory was stained by the ashes of villages. Every tale of bravery was haunted by the screams of the innocent. The mask of the Waffen-SS glittered with glory. The reality was soaked in blood. And as the Reich began to collapse, their violence only grew more desperate and more monstrous. By 1943, the Reich was bleeding. The Red Army hammered from the east. The Allies pressed from the west. German losses mounted by the hundreds of thousands. The dream of a 1,000-year empire was cracking. And yet, the Waffen-SS kept growing. Not shrinking. Growing. How? By reaching beyond Germany's borders. By transforming into a multinational crusade. Himmler had long dreamed of the SS as more than a German order. He imagined it as a brotherhood of Aryan warriors drawn from across Europe. Now, with German manpower collapsing, that dream became necessity. Recruitment campaigns swept through the occupied lands. Posters promised glory. Pamphlets called for volunteers to fight Bolshevism and defend European civilization. And they came. From Denmark and Norway, young men joined in hopes of proving themselves Nordic brothers. From the Netherlands and Belgium, recruits poured in, eager to escape obscurity and embrace a cause larger than themselves. France, too, provided thousands of volunteers, lured by hatred of communism or the intoxicating image of belonging to an elite order. Soon, divisions of Dutch, Flemish, Walloon, and French SS fighters marched under the Black Banner. Entire units were raised: the Viking Division, the Charlemagne Division, the Nordland Division. Even outside Europe, the SS recruited Muslims from Bosnia, Tatars from Crimea, even volunteers from India under Subhas Chandra Bose's movement. It was no longer just the German SS. It was becoming Hitler's global legion. The irony was staggering. An organization obsessed with racial purity now opened its doors to foreigners. Himmler bent ideology to fit reality. He justified it as a European crusade. The war against Bolshevism, he declared, was a holy struggle, and the Waffen-SS would be its knights. Propaganda painted this vision with grandeur. Posters showed Nordic warriors standing shoulder to shoulder, defending Europe's destiny. Films showed foreign volunteers swearing oaths to Hitler, raising hands in unison, pledging loyalty unto death. The message was clear. The SS was no longer just Germany's army. It was Europe's shield. But reality was different. Many volunteers were motivated less by ideology, more by desperation. Some sought adventure, others survival. Some were opportunists, hoping for power under German rule. And many found themselves disillusioned when confronted with the SS brutality. Still, their presence mattered. By 1944, nearly half of the Waffen-SS was made up of non-Germans. The Black Order had become a patchwork of nations, bound not by homeland, but by oath to Hitler. On the battlefield, these foreign divisions fought with mixed results. Some, like the Viking and Nordland, earned reputations for ferocity against the Soviets. Others collapsed under pressure, unprepared for the brutality of total war. Yet even in failure, their existence symbolized something larger. The SS had become more than a military unit. It was now a transnational cult of fanaticism. And when the Reich began to crumble, these foreign volunteers did not simply vanish. They fought to the bitter end, some even defending Berlin itself in 1945. Frenchmen in SS uniforms fought in the ruins of Hitler's capital, dying for a cause not even their own. The Waffen-SS had started as a handful of German bodyguards. Now it was an army of nearly 1 million men drawn from across continents. An empire of loyalty, forged in lies and blood. But the more the SS spread, the more their crimes spread with them. Foreign hands, too, became stained with massacre, repression, and genocide. The myth of a European crusade was cover for a multinational machine of destruction. The Black Banner had gone global, and the nightmare followed wherever it flew. The vision was seductive. A new Europe, united under the swastika, cleansed of inferiors, ruled by the iron hand of the Reich. To many foreign volunteers, the Waffen-SS promised exactly that, a chance to fight not just for Germany, but for a reborn continent. Posters in occupied cities proclaimed, "Europe is fighting for its survival." Propaganda framed the SS as defenders of the West, a shield against Bolshevik hordes. And in war-ravaged lands, the message resonated. Some joined out of conviction, others out of desperation. For collaborators and fascist sympathizers, the Waffen-SS offered prestige. For the desperate, it offered survival. For the ambitious, it offered power. Whatever the reason, the Black Order welcomed them. On the Eastern Front, these volunteers were thrown into the fire. The Viking Division, composed of Dutch, Flemish, and Scandinavian recruits, fought viciously in Ukraine and the Caucasus. The Nordland Division, filled with Norwegians and Danes, battled the Red Army with savage determination. The Charlemagne Division of Frenchmen became infamous, fighting to the last man in the ruins of Berlin. They were hailed in propaganda as proof of a united Europe, shoulder to shoulder against the East. But the reality was darker. These foreign SS units carried the same ideology, the same oath, the same merciless doctrine. Wherever they marched, atrocities followed. Villages burned. Civilians executed. Their loyalty to Hitler demanded not only courage, but cruelty. And yet, despite their numbers, the dream of a new Europe was a hollow fantasy. German SS officers treated foreign volunteers as expendable. They were used as cannon fodder, thrown into hopeless battles to buy time for retreating Wehrmacht units. Ideology spoke of unity, but racism still ruled. Germans always came first. Still, the symbolism mattered. In the collapsing Reich, the sight of Frenchmen, Norwegians, and Croats fighting beneath the black banner gave the illusion of legitimacy. Hitler boasted that his Waffen-SS was more than an army. It was a brotherhood of nations, the vanguard of a new order. The climax of this illusion came in 1945. As Berlin lay in ruins, a corps of foreign SS fought to the bitter end. In the government quarter, among the last defenders of Hitler's bunker, were men of the French Charlemagne division. They fought with fanatical desperation, holding off Soviet tanks street by street, until they were annihilated. It was a final, futile gesture. Foreign blood spilled for a German dream that had already collapsed. The new Europe Hitler promised never existed. Instead, the Waffen-SS built a Europe of ruins, graves, and ashes. What they called unity was domination. What they called civilization was slaughter. And the men who believed they were knights of a continent discovered, too late, that they were pawns of destruction. The Waffen-SS had gone multinational. But the only thing they truly spread across Europe was death. June 6, 1944. D-Day. Allied ships fill the horizon. The beaches of Normandy explode under the heaviest invasion in history. And waiting inland, hidden in hedgerows and villages, are the Waffen-SS. The 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend. Boys barely out of school, drilled into fanatic soldiers. Raised on Nazi ideology, trained with merciless discipline, they are eager to prove themselves. As British and Canadian troops push inland, these teenage fanatics counterattack with shocking ferocity. Tanks roar through bocage lanes. Infantry strike without hesitation. Entire units fight to the last man. The Allies are stunned by their resistance. Casualties mount. The Waffen-SS earn a grim reputation. They do not surrender, and they give no quarter. But their fanaticism carries a darker truth. Prisoners taken by the 12th SS are often executed on the spot. Fields and ditches become graves for unarmed soldiers. Mercy is forbidden. Terror is doctrine. As the Allies push deeper into France, other SS divisions join the fight. The Leibstandarte, Das Reich, Hohenstaufen, hardened veterans of the Eastern Front. They fight with the same ruthless aggression, turning every hedgerow into a fortress. For weeks, Normandy becomes a slaughterhouse. The Allies win ground inch by inch, paid for with blood. But the SS cannot stop the tide. Allied air power smashes convoys. Artillery pounds defenses. Slowly, the Black divisions are ground down. When the Falaise pocket closes in August 1944, thousands of German troops are trapped. The Waffen-SS fight savagely to escape, leaving wrecked tanks and burned villages in their wake. Survivors retreat eastward. The myth of invincibility cracks, but it does not break. Because months later, in the frozen forests of Belgium, the Waffen-SS will launch their last great gamble. December 1944. The Ardennes. Snow covers the ground. Fog blinds the skies. From the forests, German tanks burst forward in a desperate counterattack, the Battle of the Bulge. At the spearhead, once again, are the Waffen-SS. Sepp Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army leads the assault. Their orders: smash through the Allied lines, reach Antwerp, split the enemy in two. For a moment, it works. American units are caught off guard. Villages fall. Roads clog with retreating columns. In the chaos, the SS seize their chance to strike fear. Near the town of Malmedy, American prisoners are captured. They are marched into a snowy field. Machine guns are raised. The prisoners are gunned down where they stand. Survivors crawl into the snow, hunted and executed. The Malmedy massacre shocks the world. It becomes a symbol of the Waffen-SS, brutal even in defeat, murderous even when victory slips away. The Ardennes offensive rages for weeks. The Waffen-SS fight with fury, but Allied strength is too great. The counterattack collapses. German tanks run out of fuel. Divisions are shattered. The Reich's last hope in the West is extinguished. Yet the legend of the Waffen-SS grows darker still. In Normandy and the Ardennes, they proved their reputation as fierce, fanatical fighters. But they also revealed their true nature. Soldiers who wrapped themselves in glory while staining Europe with blood. The West had seen their ferocity. Now it had also seen their crimes. And with Germany collapsing, the SS would soon turn its fanaticism inward, toward defending a dying Reich, street by street, ruin by ruin. Snow. Silence. A frozen Belgian field in December 1944. Dozens of American prisoners stand huddled together, hands raised. They have surrendered, unarmed, expecting captivity. Instead, Waffen-SS guards raise their machine guns. The chatter of gunfire rips through the still air. Men collapse into the snow, blood staining white drifts red. Survivors crawl, wounded, trying to escape. Some are finished with pistol shots. Others freeze to death overnight. This is Malmedy, the massacre that sears the name of the Waffen-SS into infamy. News spreads quickly through Allied lines. Soldiers whisper, "The SS kill prisoners." Rage follows. For many GIs, the Malmedy massacre becomes a rallying cry. Take no SS alive. The myth of the SS as fearless warriors is drowned in the reality of their savagery. But Malmedy was not an exception. It was a pattern. Throughout the Ardennes campaign, Waffen-SS units executed civilians suspected of aiding the Allies. Villagers shot as spies. Farmers killed for refusing to give up supplies. In Normandy months earlier, Canadian and British prisoners had been gunned down by the 12th SS Hitlerjugend Division. To the SS, surrender was weakness, mercy was treason, humanity was irrelevant. And still, their propaganda machine worked overtime. Inside Germany, newspapers ignored the massacres. Instead, they praised the Waffen-SS as defenders of the fatherland. Mothers were told their sons fought like heroes. The black stains of atrocity were hidden under headlines of honor. But Allied soldiers saw the truth. To them, the Waffen-SS were not just enemies. They were executioners. Capturing an SS man carried its own deadly stigma. Many were shot on sight, vengeance for Malmedy echoing across the front. As the war turned against Germany, the Waffen-SS clung even tighter to their fanatic creed. They called themselves knights. They fought like zealots, but their honor was drowned in blood. Every act of bravery was matched by an act of butchery. Every legend of courage was shadowed by the corpses of innocents. The Malmedy massacre stood as a symbol, not just of one crime, but of an entire system. The SS had been built on brutality. Indoctrination taught them that enemies were less than human. Discipline taught them that hesitation was betrayal. Ideology told them that annihilation was duty. From that foundation, atrocity was inevitable. And yet, even as the Allies advanced, the Waffen-SS refused to break. Their fanaticism carried them into hopeless battles, their loyalty chaining them to Hitler's dying empire. The black uniforms fought on, even as the Reich collapsed around them. But the world had seen enough. Normandy, Malmedy, Ordre-sur-Glane, Babi Yar. From the east to the west, the Waffen-SS left a trail of graves. No propaganda could erase it. No myth could disguise it. The shadow was too dark. The West had judged them already. Soon, the world would judge them forever. Because in the ruins of Berlin, as the Reich burned, the Waffen-SS would make their final stand. And in the courtrooms of Nuremberg, their crimes would finally be laid bare. April 1945. Berlin is a graveyard. The sky glows red with fire. Soviet artillery pounds the city into rubble. Streets are seas of debris, buildings collapse into ash, and the air reeks of smoke and death. The Reich, once promised to last 1,000 years, is dying in weeks. And in its ruins, the Waffen-SS fight to the very end. They are everywhere, in shattered buildings, behind barricades, inside subway tunnels. Foreign volunteers of the Charlemagne Division, Frenchmen in black SS uniforms, defend Hitler's capital alongside Germans, Danes, and Norwegians. Teenagers from the Hitler Youth fight beside battle-hardened veterans. The oath still binds them. Loyalty until death. They fight with fanatical desperation. Soviet tanks push street by street, only to be ambushed by SS men with Panzerfausts from cellars and attics. Machine guns rattle from rubble piles. Every corner is a fortress, every ruin a last stand. Civilians caught in the inferno watch with horror as the SS drag them into the fight, executing anyone who speaks of surrender. The cost is staggering. Entire SS units are annihilated in days. The French Charlemagne fighters, hailed as the last knights of Hitler, are slaughtered in the government quarter. Outnumbered, outgunned, starving, they fight until their ammunition runs dry. For them, surrender is impossible. The oath demands death. Beyond Berlin, across collapsing fronts, the Waffen-SS fight the same hopeless battles. In Hungary, SS divisions clash with the Red Army in Budapest, turning the city into another Stalingrad of rubble and corpses. In Austria, in Czechoslovakia, they retreat and resist, buying time with blood even as defeat becomes inevitable. For the Allies, the Waffen-SS remain enemies to be destroyed, but also enemies to be feared. Even in the Reich's death throes, their ferocity is unmatched. They fight not for victory, but for an idea that refuses to die, an illusion of honor chained to a monstrous cause. But fanaticism cannot halt reality. The Red Army closes in. American and British forces sweep from the west. Germany is cut in two, then into pieces. Cities fall. Armies surrender. The Reich crumbles under the weight of total defeat. And still, in scattered pockets, the Waffen-SS resist. Some fight to the last bullet, dying in burned-out villages and forests. Others throw down their weapons only at the very end, captured in columns of ragged prisoners, their black insignia torn away in shame. In Berlin, the end comes swiftly. Hitler is dead. The Reichstag falls. The black banners are trampled into rubble. The SS fought for a 1,000-year empire. They died in one that barely lasted 12. But survival brings no mercy. The world has watched their crimes. The massacres in France. The killings in Belgium. The genocides in the East. The Waffen-SS may have fought like zealots, but history is ready to call them what they are: war criminals. The battlefield is nearly silent. The Black Order lies in ruins. But their reckoning is only beginning. May 1945. The guns fall silent. Across Europe, the Reich is no more. Cities lie in ruins, millions are dead, and Germany is a land of rubble and surrender. The war has ended. But for the Waffen-SS, the nightmare is only beginning. Allied soldiers march endless columns of prisoners into captivity. Among them, the black insignia of the SS stands out like a brand. To wear the twin lightning runes is to carry the weight of every atrocity, every massacre, every execution. Soldiers of the Wehrmacht may be pitted as conscripts. SS men are despised as criminals. Captured, they face the hatred of the world. American guards spit at them. Soviet troops beat them. Civilians in occupied lands scream for vengeance. To many, the Waffen-SS are not soldiers. They are monsters who burned villages, who shot prisoners, who executed children. And now the mask of invincibility has been torn away. They are no longer feared warriors. They are broken men in rags, marched into barbed wire cages. The Allies begin to separate them. Ordinary German soldiers are sent to POW camps. SS men are singled out for trial. From Normandy to the Ardennes, survivors of massacres step forward to testify. Names are recorded. Units are tracked. The list of crimes grows longer with each day. For the first time, the Waffen-SS must answer for their actions. In France, members of the Das Reich division face judgment for the slaughter at Oradour-sur-Glane. In Belgium, survivors testify about the Malmedy massacre. Across Eastern Europe, witnesses recount the burning of villages, the killing fields, the mass graves. The evidence is overwhelming. The myth of honorable warriors collapses under the weight of truth. Some SS men cling to excuses. They claim they only followed orders. They insist they were soldiers like any others. They protest they knew nothing of massacres, nothing of genocide. But the world has seen too much. Too many villages erased. Too many civilians butchered. Too many prisoners executed. Obedience is no defense against murder. At the same time, Himmler's dream of a racial knightly order shatters in humiliation. Many captured SS men tear the insignia from their uniforms, desperate to hide their allegiance. Some attempt escape. Others, knowing what awaits, take their own lives. But most are dragged before tribunals, forced to face the crimes they once committed in the name of duty. For the Allies, punishing the SS is more than vengeance. It is justice. The world must see the truth exposed. The Waffen-SS are declared a criminal organization, guilty not only of war crimes, but of crimes against humanity itself. Yet even in disgrace, their fanaticism lingers. In prison camps, some still cling to Hitler's vision. They whisper that their cause was betrayed, not defeated. They refuse to admit guilt, rewriting their story as soldiers fighting for Europe. It is a lie that will echo for decades, poisoning history with myths of glory. But in 1945, there is no glory left. The reckoning has begun. The Black Order that once dreamed of ruling Europe now kneels in chains. Their future is not on the battlefield, but in courtrooms, prisons, and graves. The Waffen-SS had lived by the oath, "Loyalty is my honor." Now, in the ruins of Germany, that oath condemns them. November 1945. In the shattered city of Nuremberg, inside the Palace of Justice, the victors of the Second World War put the defeated on trial. The stage is set not for a battle of armies, but for a battle of truth. The defendants sit in silence, Göring, Hess, Ribbentrop, Kaltenbrunner. And among the charges read aloud is one that echoes like a hammer strike. The Schutzstaffel, the SS, is a criminal organization. For the first time in history, an entire order, an entire brotherhood, is judged guilty of crimes against humanity. The evidence is staggering. Mountains of documents, photographs, and testimonies are brought forth. Survivors describe the massacres of villages in the East, the executions in France and Belgium, the endless killings carried out under the black insignia. Films shot by liberators reveal concentration camps, skeletal prisoners behind barbed wire, piles of bodies, gas chambers disguised as showers. The world sees with its own eyes what the SS wrought. The courtroom falls silent as witnesses speak. A woman describes how her family was shot by SS men outside Kiev. A Canadian soldier recounts comrades executed in Normandy. A villager from Oradour-sur-Glane remembers the church burning with women and children trapped inside. Each testimony pierces the myth of honorable warriors. Each word destroys the lie of the Waffen-SS as mere soldiers. The defense scrambles. Lawyers argue that the Waffen-SS was separate from the concentration camps, that they were frontline troops, fighting like any army. But the truth is undeniable. Waffen-SS divisions had guarded camps, supplied guards, supported Einsatzgruppen, and carried out atrocities themselves. The line between combat and murder had been erased. The judges are clear. The SS was not a military force in the ordinary sense. It was the engine of terror, the sword of genocide, the enforcer of ideology. To join it was to join a criminal enterprise. To serve in it was to serve in history's darkest chapter. And so, at Nuremberg, the verdict is delivered. The SS is guilty of war crimes, crimes against peace, and crimes against humanity. Its members, over 800,000 men by war's end, are branded as criminals. No uniform, no oath, no myth of honor can erase that truth. For those who wore the black uniform, the consequences are devastating. Many face execution. Others are imprisoned for life. Some vanish into obscurity, hiding their pasts, hoping history will forget. But history does not forget. The name Waffen-SS is forever stained. In Germany, the judgment shatters the myth. Families who once boasted of sons in the SS now hide in shame. The propaganda of Knights of Europe collapses under the weight of truth. They were not defenders, but destroyers. Not soldiers, but criminals. The Nuremberg trials do more than punish. They set a precedent. Never again, the world declares, can an organization commit atrocities on such scale and escape responsibility. Never again can obedience be an excuse for murder. Never again can ideology justify annihilation. The SS, once hailed as Hitler's chosen brotherhood, ends as history's ultimate outcast, condemned in court, disgraced in memory, branded as a symbol of absolute evil. The Black Order that dreamed of ruling the world is buried in the judgment of humanity. But the story is not over, because shadows linger, and myths die harder than men. The war ended in 1945. The trials ended in 1946. The Reich was gone. Hitler was dead. The SS was outlawed, condemned, branded forever as criminal. And yet, the shadow of the Waffen-SS lingers. For decades after the war, survivors whispered their stories. Villages in France, Belgium, Poland, Ukraine carried scars that never healed. Families lived with empty chairs at their tables, graves without names, memories of black uniforms and burning homes. To them, the Waffen-SS was not legend. It was terror incarnate. But in the ruins of defeat, a different story began to spread. Former SS men, writing memoirs, claimed they were only soldiers. They spoke of comradeship, of courage, of sacrifice. They insisted the Waffen-SS was separate from the crimes of the camps. They painted themselves as victims of circumstance, as warriors fighting honorably on the battlefield. It was a lie, but a dangerous one. Some wanted to believe it. In the Cold War years, with the Soviet Union now the enemy, Western intelligence quietly turned to ex-SS officers for expertise. Forgotten by justice, some rebuilt lives in silence. Others joined new armies, their pasts buried beneath new uniforms. Yet the stain never faded. Historians uncovered the truth again and again. The Waffen-SS was never separate from atrocity. Its divisions committed massacres. Its men served as guards in camps. Its oath tied it directly to Hitler's crimes. The myth of clean hands collapsed each time evidence was unearthed. And still the fascination remained. The black uniforms, the iron discipline, the aura of invincibility. These became dark symbols that survived long after the Reich fell. In books, in films, in the fevered dreams of extremists, the Waffen-SS was twisted into something almost mythical. A cult of death that refuses to die. But history is unyielding. For every story of battlefield courage, there are graves to prove the cost. For every tale of comradeship, there are burned villages. For every myth of honor, there are the screams of the innocent. The legacy of the Waffen-SS is not glory. It is genocide. It is murder. It is fanaticism turned into an army. Today, the name carries only infamy. The runes they wore are banned in Germany. Their symbols are recognized worldwide as emblems of hate. To remember them is not to admire them, but to confront what humanity becomes when ideology devours morality. The Waffen-SS began as bodyguards in Berlin beer halls. They grew into a shadow empire, an army of nearly 1 million, men who swore loyalty to one man, who believed themselves chosen, who waged war not only on soldiers but on entire peoples. They fought with ferocity. They killed with fanaticism. They left behind ruins, ashes, and graves. Their story is not one of honor. It is a warning, because the Waffen-SS were not super soldiers. They were not knights. They were not heroes. They were the weapon of a dictatorship. They were the enforcers of genocide. They were the black heart of Hitler's war. And in the judgment of history, they remain what they always were. A brotherhood of terror, condemned forever in the memory of mankind.